I didn't take the job because I needed money. I took it because I was stubborn. And maybe, just maybe, because I wanted to prove to my ex that I wasn't soft. We'd broken up the week before, in a scene worthy of bad reality TV, me standing in my kitchen holding a spatula like a weapon, him shouting something about me, never knowing what it's like to work with your hands. I said, "I'll show you hands," and flung pancake batter at the wall. Not my finest moment. The next day, I walked into Brew and Chew, a quirky little coffee shop 3 blocks from my apartment, and asked if they were hiring. A girl with 3 nose rings and a bun that looked like a bird's nest handed me an apron without asking my name. "We're always hiring," she said. "Can you start now?" And just like that, I was a barista. For the first time in years, I wore a name tag. Mira. It felt strange, like seeing my name in someone else's handwriting. The job was fine, grueling, hot, and full of customers who ordered drinks with 8 adjectives. But something about it grounded me. Maybe it was the simplicity. Maybe it was the way my hands stung from washing dishes all day. I started sleeping better, eating better, thinking less. Then, on day 11 of operation, prove my ex wrong, he walked in. No, not him, a him. A guy in a navy coat, clearly important, definitely in a rush. He ordered a soy vanilla latte, triple shot, no foam, and scrolled through his phone like it owed him money. I turned to grab the cup from the machine when my elbow bumped the milk pitcher. In slow motion, like a bad dream, I watched the latte tip over. It didn't just spill. It launched. Right onto his very nice coat. The soy, the vanilla, the scalding espresso, all of it. Right on his chest. The room went silent. He looked down, then up. His mouth opened, and then something strange happened. He laughed. Not a fake laugh, not a polite, "I'm gonna see you later" chuckle. A full-bellied, wheezy laugh like he'd just heard the best joke of his life. And then he said, "Well, that's one way to say hello again." Again? I blinked. Do I know you?" He just smiled. "Not yet," he said. "But you will." That's how it started. The job I took to prove a point was about to take me somewhere I never expected. And it all started with a ruined coat and a mystery man who laughed instead of yelling. The next morning, I arrived at Brew and Chew expecting things to go back to normal. Normal, in this case, being burnt scones, sarcastic coworkers, and coffee orders that sounded like spells. But there he was. Same navy coat, still stained. By the way, same amused grin. He leaned on the counter like he owned the place and ordered the exact same drink I'd spilled on him yesterday. I squinted. "Back for round 2? I like to live dangerously," he said, flashing a grin like he was auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. "Also, this coat was ugly anyway. You did me a favor." I couldn't help but smile. I didn't know his name, but his energy was oddly magnetic, like someone who grew up watching too many 90s rom-coms and just decided life should be like that. As I handed him his carefully made, lid-secured latte, he tapped the side of the cup and said, "So, Mira, tell me, what's your story?" That caught me off guard. Most people just grunted their orders and disappeared into their phones. I shrugged. Not much of a story. Just a girl who makes coffee and sometimes ruins coats. He didn't take the hint. "You always this mysterious?" "I'm not mysterious," I said. "I'm tired. I've been up since 5. I smell like milk. And you still have espresso on your collar." He laughed. Again with the laughing. What was his deal? After he left, I turned to Kelly, the nose ring girl, and said, "Okay, who was that?" She didn't look up from her playlist. "Dunno. Never seen him before yesterday." That became a pattern. Every morning, he came in, ordered the same drink, and made conversation like we were old friends. He always asked questions about me, about the shop, about whether I believed in fate or if I thought mushrooms were secretly evil. He was weird, but the kind of weird that starts to feel like a bright spot in your day. And then one day, he didn't come in. I tried not to care. I didn't even know his name. Still, I found myself looking at the door every time the bell jingled. It was ridiculous. He was probably just busy, or realized the coffee wasn't that good. But the next day? Still no sign. And the next? Nothing. On the 4th day, I came in to find a package behind the counter with a note taped to it. "For Mira, don't open it until your shift ends. The coat guy." My stomach did a little somersault. I carried the box around like it was made of glass all day, resisting the urge to peek. When my shift finally ended, I took it to the back alley, away from the eyes of my coworkers. My hands were shaking a little. Inside was a coat. Not just any coat. My coat. Well, not literally mine, but the exact one I'd been eyeing online for months and could never justify buying. Thick, burgundy wool, soft as a blanket, with big buttons that looked like caramel drops. And under the coat, a note. "Figured I owed you a new one. Jude, the guy you apparently don't remember." P.S. I'll be back next Thursday. Save me a soy vanilla latte. I stared at the name. Jude. Why did that feel familiar? And then it hit me. My stomach dropped so fast I nearly lost my footing. There was a Jude. And I had known him. But not from here. Not from now. From before. And if it was the same Jude I was thinking of, oh no. Oh, no. This wasn't some charming meet-cute. This was a callback from my past. And I had a very bad feeling about what was coming next. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept waking up thinking about the coat. Not the one he gave me, the one he wore. The navy one I spilled coffee on. Because suddenly, I remembered exactly where I'd seen it before. It was senior year of high school. The week of the winter formal. I had just been dumped in a Taco Bell parking lot by my then-boyfriend. Yes, that classy. And I was crying on a bus bench outside the school when a kid I barely knew sat down next to me. He didn't say anything. Just pulled a coat out of his backpack. It was way too big for me, and draped it over my shoulders like it was the most normal thing in the world. I don't remember much about what he said that day. Only that he sat with me until I stopped crying. I think he even offered me a granola bar. His name was Jude. I'd barely thought about him in the years since. He was quiet. Sort of dorky. The kind of guy who always raised his hand in class and had perfect handwriting. We never really talked again. And I never gave the coat back. I think I lost it somewhere between college and my third failed attempt at adulthood. But now he was here. Coffee shop Jude. Grinning Jude. You'll remember me eventually, Jude. And he'd been waiting for me to recognize him. Which begged the question, why now? I spent the next few days cycling through theories. Maybe he was just trying to be nice. Maybe it was a coincidence. Or maybe, just maybe, he was exacting some long-con revenge in the most passive-aggressive, caffeine-laced way possible. Thursday arrived like a slow drum roll in my head. I wore the coat he gave me, even though it was slightly too warm out. I don't know why. Maybe to show him I remembered. The bell above the door rang just after 8 a.m. There he was. Still handsome. Still smug. Still ordering the same ridiculous drink. I handed it to him without a word. He raised an eyebrow. No sarcastic comment today? I remember you, I said quietly. He froze mid-sip. I watched the smirk fade just slightly. His face softened. Yeah, he said. Took you long enough. I laughed, but it came out weird and wobbly. Why didn't you just say something? He shrugged. Didn't want to force it. Figured if you remembered, you remembered. If you didn't, well, free coffee's still free coffee. I tilted my head. So what's this? You just pop up years later and pretend we're strangers. I wasn't pretending, he said. We were strangers. Now we're not. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said the dumbest possible thing. Did you really like that coat? He looked down at his drink, then up at me with a half smile. Honestly? I hated it. But you looked good in it. So I let it go. And that's when I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a while. Loud and unfiltered and a little embarrassing. He looked relieved. That's more like it. But just when I thought the weirdness was behind us, Jude glanced around and said something that chilled me more than the walk-in freezer. Hey, by the way, are you still in touch with Ethan? I blinked. Ethan? There were at least 3 Ethans I could think of, but only one who mattered. Only one who was connected to both me and Jude. And if he was coming into the picture, this coffee shop saga was about to get a whole lot messier. The moment Jude said Ethan's name, my stomach did that thing it used to do before school presentations, fluttery and vaguely nauseous. I hadn't seen Ethan in years. Not since he broke up with me using the phrase, "It's not you, it's tacos." He had this way of smiling while delivering the worst news, like that made it sting less. I forced a casual shrug. Haven't seen him. Why? Jude sipped his coffee and avoided my eyes. He messaged me a few weeks ago. Said he was moving back. Thought maybe you knew. I tried to laugh it off. I barely knew where he was when we were dating. Jude gave me a look that said, I don't buy it. I didn't blame him. The truth? I had Googled Ethan once. Okay, 3 times. Okay, a few times over the last couple years. Nothing serious. Just curiosity-fueled digital stalking. But what Jude said next hit harder than expected. He said he's engaged. That stopped me cold. Engaged. Ethan, who once thought recycling was a scam, was now tying himself to another human being forever? I didn't know why it bothered me. It wasn't jealousy. Not exactly. More like confusion. Like someone had gone into my past and rewrote the script without asking. I changed the subject, fast. So, what's your deal? Are you just here to haunt all the people who ignored you in high school? Jude grinned. Only the ones who kept my coat. We ended up talking for an hour. About everything and nothing. Turns out he worked remotely in something tech-y I didn't fully understand. He lived across town. And he had a cat named Lentil, who apparently liked to chew wires. Before he left, he said, You should come to this gallery thing next week. I think you'd like it. And Ethan might be there. I stared at him. Is this a trap? I asked. He winked. Only if you wear that coat. I watched him walk out, completely unsure of what I just agreed to. Because if Jude was stirring up memories, Ethan would be an emotional earthquake. And I had a feeling neither of them knew just how connected we all really were. I told myself I wasn't dressing up for Ethan. I was dressing up for art, for culture, for the vague promise of free wine and awkward small talk under industrial light fixtures. Still, I tried on 4 outfits. Landed on black jeans, a silk top I'd forgotten I owned, and, yes, the burgundy coat. When I arrived at the gallery, I spotted Jude almost immediately. He was standing near a sculpture that looked like 2 spoons fighting, holding 2 glasses of red wine like a man with a mission. You came, he said, handing me a glass. You invited me, I replied, trying to sound breezy. He looked me over, smiled. Nice coat. Before I could ask if this was some kind of setup, I felt a presence behind me. I turned, and there he was. Ethan. Same stupid jawline. Same too perfect hair. But something about him had changed. He looked older, tighter around the eyes. Or maybe it was just that he was wearing a blazer and holding a woman's clutch. Hey, he said, like we'd seen each other last week. I blinked. Hey. Jude cleared his throat, polite but smug. Well, I'll leave you two to whatever this is. He vanished into the crowd, abandoning me in Ethan's wake. The woman whose purse he was holding appeared. She was stunning. Like toothpaste commercial, leggy and unbothered stunning. She gave me a once-over and smiled sweetly. You must be Mira. I panicked. I panicked so hard, I said. No, I'm Nina. Her twin. What? What? Ethan furrowed his brow. I didn't know Mira had a twin. She doesn't, I blurted. It was a joke. I'm Mira. The woman gave a tight laugh, as if I confirmed all her worst suspicions. Ethan didn't laugh. I've heard a lot about you, she said. I'm his fiancée. Harper. I stuck out my hand. Congratulations. I hope you enjoy tacos. The words came out sharp, spite wrapped in sarcasm. I regretted them immediately. Harper blinked. Ethan sighed. I spotted Jude across the room, watching. Not in a creepy way. Just observing. And then I understood. This was a setup. But not to hurt me. To show me something. Something I wasn't quite ready to admit. I found Jude by a wall of weird, wavy paintings that looked like someone spilled spaghetti on canvas. He was pretending to study them, but I could tell he'd seen everything. He handed me another glass of wine before I could ask. So, he said casually, how'd that go? I gave him a look. Did you plan that? Plan is a strong word, he replied. Let's say, encouraged. I took a long sip. She's beautiful. She's terrifying, he whispered. I saw her parallel park. No human should be that confident. That made me laugh, even though I didn't feel like laughing. My cheeks were hot from embarrassment, or maybe the wine. Probably both. Jude leaned against the wall. Look, I didn't bring you here to mess with you. I just thought, maybe you needed to see it. See what, exactly? I asked. He paused. That you're not stuck. The words hit harder than I expected. I'm not stuck, I said defensively. He didn't argue. Just looked at me, quiet and calm, like he wasn't afraid of the silence between words. I sighed. Okay, maybe I was a little stuck. But it's not like I was waiting for Ethan to come back and declare his undying love. Jude raised an eyebrow. Fine, I admitted. Maybe a tiny part of me wondered what it would feel like to see him again. And now I know. It feels like dry chicken and small talk. That made him grin. Progress. We wandered around the gallery, making up fake titles for each painting. At one point, Jude pointed at a sculpture shaped like a dented traffic cone and said, "This one's called Emotional Baggage Claim." By the end of the night, I felt lighter. Like I'd let go of something I didn't realize I was still carrying. Outside, the air was cool and soft, like the evening was giving everyone a second chance. Jude turned to me. Can I ask you something? I nodded. Why didn't you remember me? That stopped me. I think I did, I said. I just buried it. Back then, you were the kind one. The safe one. And I wasn't ready for kind. I wanted chaos. He nodded slowly. And now, I said, smiling a little. I kind of like safe. He smiled back. But before anything else could be said, before I could even think too hard about what I was feeling, my phone buzzed with a message. From Harper. We need to talk. Alone. I don't know what I expected when I agreed to meet Harper. Maybe a dramatic confrontation. Maybe an icy warning. Maybe she'd throw a latte in my face this time. What I didn't expect was to find her already seated at Brew and Chew, sipping chamomile tea and scrolling through a real estate app like she was shopping for a new handbag. She looked up, smiled. Mira. Thanks for coming. I sat down, cautiously. You're very calm. Harper gave a dry chuckle. Well, I already cried in the car. That helps. That stopped me. Wait, what? She set down her tea and leaned forward. Ethan and I got into a fight. Right after the gallery. Actually, during. I blinked. Because of me? She waved it off. Not directly. But I asked him a question, and he hesitated. That's never a good sign. What did you ask? She looked me dead in the eye. If he was over you. I had nothing. No words. Just the vague feeling that I'd wandered into a conversation meant for someone braver. Harper sighed. Look, I'm not here to make drama. I'm here because I've spent the last year planning a wedding with someone who still has one eye on the rearview mirror. I opened my mouth, but she held up a hand. I don't blame you. You didn't do anything. And honestly, I get it. You're cool. Quirky. You've got that messy, charming vibe. The coat? Killer. I stared. Are you complimenting me? She grinned. Don't make it weird. There was a long pause. 2 sips of tea. One breath held, then exhaled. I'm calling off the engagement, she said. Just like that. No tears. No drama. I didn't know what to say. I'm sorry. Don't be, she said. I'm relieved. Honestly, I think I always knew. But it took seeing him look at you to finally admit it to myself. I stared at the table, overwhelmed. Then Harper added something that made my head tilt. Besides, there's someone else. Someone I met at my spin class. He laughs at my playlists. He eats carbs. And he doesn't flinch when I talk about retirement accounts. I blinked. Wow, that sounds healthy. Exactly, she said. Then she stood. Tell Jude I like him. He's got good eyes. And just like that, she left, leaving me sitting there, completely stunned. Because somehow, Harper, the fiancé I was bracing myself to hate, had just become the unexpected voice of clarity. And also, apparently, a fan of Jude? I walked into Brew and Chew the next morning feeling like someone had reset my brain overnight. You know that dazed feeling after a dream that felt real? That was me, standing there in my burgundy coat, half convinced I'd imagined Harper's entire speech. Kelly, nose ring girl, was restocking the pastry case with the kind of focus usually reserved for bomb defusal. You look different, she said, not looking up. Did you cry or kiss someone? Neither, I said. But someone might have dumped my ex for me. Kelly nodded like this was a common scenario. Nice. I threw on my apron, tucked my hair behind my ears, and turned to the register, and there he was. Jude. Behind the counter. Wearing a Brew and Chew apron. Holding a mop. Smirking. Morning, he said, like this was completely normal. I blinked. Are you lost? Or doing performance art? He shrugged. Kelly said you were short-staffed. I figured, how hard can it be to steam milk? Kelly gave him a death glare from behind the counter. He's not officially hired. Yet. I looked at Jude. You got up at 6 in the morning to make coffee with me? He looked sheepish. You once said people show up for what matters to them. Oh. I didn't know what to do with that sentence. So I distracted myself by showing him how to load the espresso machine. He was a fast learner. Clumsy, but enthusiastic. We worked side by side all morning. Our elbows bumped. We laughed too much. He handed a cappuccino to a woman and accidentally said, "Enjoy your commitment issues," instead of "enjoy your drink." It was glorious. At one point, during a lull, Jude leaned on the counter and said, "So, what did Harper want?" I paused. She ended it, I said. With Ethan. Jude didn't flinch. Yeah. She also told me to tell you she likes your eyes. He blinked, then cracked a grin. Smart woman. I wiped my hands on a towel, watching him try to get the lid on a blender without actually removing the cap. And then I realized something strange. I felt happy. Not performative happy. Not Instagram caption happy. Just this quiet, calm, maybe things are falling into place kind of happy. That's when the bell above the door jingled, and in walked Ethan, holding a bouquet of slightly wilted flowers. Of course he did. Ethan stepped through the door like he was walking onto a movie set, flowers in hand, expression unreadable. He paused when he saw me behind the counter, then his eyes landed on Jude. A flicker of something passed between them. Not anger exactly. More like a silent measuring contest. Hey, Ethan said, nodding at me. Can we talk? I raised my eyebrows. Here. He looked around. Unless you want to step outside. Jude didn't say anything. He just glanced at me like your call. I untied my apron slowly. 5 minutes. Outside, the morning was cool and bright. I stood with my arms crossed, partly to keep warm, partly because I needed something to do with my hands. Ethan held out the flowers. These are for you. I took them automatically. Bit late for a floral gesture, don't you think? He exhaled. Probably. Look, I know I've handled a lot of things badly. Harper, you, us, I didn't say anything. Just waited. I messed up, he said. I thought I wanted predictable. Safe. But being with Harper made me realize something. He looked right at me. I've been trying to replace you. Oh boy. I blinked. Ethan. He stepped forward, hopeful. What if we gave it another shot? I actually laughed. A short, surprised burst. Are you kidding? I said. You dumped me over fast food and then ghosted me for 4 years. You got engaged. You brought your fiancé to a gallery where I was invited by someone who actually remembers my favorite coffee order. His face fell. You don't love me, I said gently. You love the idea of who I was. The girl you broke. But I'm not her anymore. He was quiet. Finally, he nodded. Fair enough, he said. You always were the smart one. I handed him back the flowers. Give these to someone who doesn't know how the story ends. Back inside, I found Jude wiping down the counter. He looked up, gave me a questioning glance. I grinned. Told him no. Jude smiled. Then I added, you still owe me a coat, technically. He tilted his head. I gave you one. I meant the first one. The original. He laughed. It was yours the second I put it on your shoulders. And just like that, something in the air shifted. Something real. Something. Maybe just beginning. You free tonight? Jude asked, wiping his hands on a towel after a long shift. I looked up from the register. 4. He shrugged. Food. Laughter. Potential mild embarrassment. I smiled. Sounds like a date. He tilted his head. It's not technically a date. Because I don't want to assume. I grabbed my coat. Well, let's just assume I said yes. We ended up at this little Ethiopian place with string lights in the window and mismatched chairs that somehow made the whole thing feel like we were inside someone's living room. Jude let me order because he said, you look like someone who knows how to pick good food. He wasn't wrong. We shared injera and lentils and a spicy dish that made Jude's eyes water so much, I had to slide him my water glass. I regret nothing, he said through tears. This pain is joy. Somewhere between the laughter and second servings, I realized I hadn't thought about Ethan once. That felt like progress. After dinner, we walked the long way home. The air had that early spring chill, just cold enough to make me pull my coat tighter. Jude offered me his scarf, and I didn't say no. We talked about nothing. Old movies, weird dreams, favorite smells, his books, mine is fresh laundry, but only my mom's kind. It was easy. And then, right as we turned the corner onto my street, something strange happened. A guy was sitting on my stoop. Middle-aged. Slightly disheveled. Hoodie, jeans, scuffed sneakers. He stood when he saw us. Mira. I froze. Yes. He smiled nervously. I'm your brother. I blinked. I don't have a brother. His smile didn't waver. Yeah, you do. Jude stepped forward, protective. Is this some kind of joke? The man shook his head. No joke. I've been trying to find you for years. And just like that, the world shifted again. The date, not a date, was instantly forgotten. Because this man knew my name. And I didn't know his. We stood there in silence for a long second, me, Jude, and the man who claimed to be my brother. I was trying to read his face, but it was like staring at an unfinished puzzle. There were familiar pieces, his nose curved like mine, same chin dimple, but they didn't quite add up. Finally, I said, What's your name? Daniel, he replied. But my mom used to call me Danny. My mom, I repeated. So, you're saying we have the same mom? Daniel nodded. Different dads. She had me when she was 19. Gave me up. She didn't talk about it much, but I started searching a few years ago. Got a name from a records clerk. Then found an address. I wasn't sure until I saw your face. I didn't know whether to cry or run. Jude gently touched my elbow. Want me to stay? I nodded, not trusting my voice. We let Daniel in. Sat at my kitchen table, which still had a half-eaten muffin and yesterday's mail on it. It felt surreal, like I'd slipped into someone else's life. He pulled out a photo. Faded, creased. A teenage girl, my mom, holding a baby wrapped in a yellow blanket. She looked so young, I whispered. She was, Daniel said. I used to make up stories about her when I was little. That she was a secret agent, or an astronaut, or lived in Paris. Anything but what the foster papers said. I swallowed hard. And you're sure it's me? He gave me a look that was oddly gentle. Mira, you look just like her. I stared at the photo, heart pounding. My mom had never mentioned this. Not once. And she was gone now, no more late-night calls or inside jokes or Sunday pancakes. No chance to ask why. Jude made tea without asking, sliding a mug in front of me like he knew I needed something to hold. Daniel stayed for an hour. Told me where he grew up. What he remembered. That he wasn't here to force anything, just to let me know I wasn't as alone as I'd thought. When he left, I sat on the couch with Jude, silent for a long time. Then I whispered, what if he's telling the truth? Jude leaned back, thoughtful. Then your story just got more interesting. I laughed. It was small, but it was real. And for the first time, I realized that sometimes the biggest surprises aren't twists. They're people. A week passed after Daniel showed up, and everything felt floaty. Not in a bad way. Just like the world was wobbling slightly, waiting to see where I'd land. He and I had coffee twice since that night. It was awkward. Kind. Careful. Like two people flipping through a book they weren't sure belonged to them. But we laughed. We found tiny overlaps. We talked about pancakes. Apparently, he makes terrible ones. Then, 3 days ago, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a text. An actual letter. From my mom. It was postmarked a few months before she passed. I didn't even know it existed. Daniel found it among old documents she left at the social worker's office. I read it sitting cross-legged on my bed, still in my work apron, fingers smudged with espresso. Mira, if you're reading this, it means your brother found you. Yes, your brother. I never told you because I didn't know how. I was young. I was scared. And I carried that choice my whole life. I hope you forgive me for the silence. I hope you and Daniel find something new together. I hope you live boldly and forgive freely. And I hope you find someone who makes you laugh more than you cry. Love you forever. Mom. By the time I finished, there were tears on my sleeve and Jude sitting quietly beside me, reading over my shoulder. I looked at him and whispered, "What even is my life?" He grinned. A really weird, surprisingly warm indie movie? I wiped my eyes. One with too many carbs and coat metaphors. We sat like that for a minute, peaceful. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a cup lid. Just a plain, plastic coffee lid. What is that? I asked, laughing. He held it up like a magician. The first lid I ever successfully put on without spilling. I kept it. You know, for when we tell people how we met. I rolled my eyes. You're ridiculous. But charming, he added. Yes, I said. Annoyingly so. And that's how it ended. Not with a big kiss in the rain. Not with fireworks. But with a lid, a letter, a brother I didn't know I had, and a guy who remembered the smallest things. Funny how a spilled latte turned into all this. Life really is just a mess of little moments that sneak up on you when you're trying to wipe coffee off someone's coat.